Come on in. Come on in. Thank you so much for joining me. I am actually in training today, and so our video is going to be very short today, but just come on in. Thank you so much for joining me. I had to find a quiet space because I did not want to miss this opportunity to go live on Therapy Thursday. So please forgive me. I'm sitting in front of the electrical room, as you can see. I am in training for EMDR, and it's a trauma training. And I did not want to miss our opportunity to do Therapy Thursday on today. So please come back in. Hey, Lauren Page. We'll go with that this week, okay? I'm not going to do the government name on you this week. You're only going to see me live on my personal page today, and then I will repost this on the Graceful Journey page a little bit later. I know I have a few minutes, and I want you guys to come on in. Thank you so much for joining me. Please share this on your page. We are going to be talking about self-care, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of self-care. Self-care is a topic that we have been hearing a lot about lately, and I want us to go beyond the surface of what we have come to know of self-care and get really deep in some things that I'm going to talk about today. Okay, so come on in, invite somebody. Hey, Tina, how are you doing? Thank you for joining me. It's so good to see you. Y'all, I'm in my glasses today because I'm in class. I'm a student. I think it's very important that we continue to hone in our craft. And if we want to be the best, we have to do things. We have to continue to be constant students and consistent students of our craft so that we be good clinicians. And that is my goal. I want to be the best clinician so that I can provide the service for my clients. So come on in. I am so thankful to have you guys with me today. Please pardon me. I am in training on today, and I'm sitting in the hallway, so hopefully nobody asks me to leave. And I need to do this Facebook Live for you. It's Therapy Thursday. It's Therapy Thursday. We are going live. It's Therapy Thursday. So good to see you. Hey, Ladybug. It's so good to see you. So the first thing that I want to talk about, guys, if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I need you to come see me on Saturday. We are having the Super Soul Power Self-Care Summit down in Dallas. I am going to post the flyer on my page after I complete this live video. So I want you to come on out. Listen, this is an event that I did earlier this year back in March with Miss Dia Thomas, and it was so amazing, this event. We had speakers that came in and gave us an array of information about how to take care of ourselves. And this time it's just going to be phenomenal. We have a mental health expert that is a man that's going to come in and talk to the men about how to take care of their mental health and wellness. We understand that a lot of times men don't necessarily want to get too emotional, but I'm telling you, this gentleman is going to have some great information for you. And even if your significant other and he's a male, and if he doesn't show up, that's fine, ladies. You come on out and come join me. I will be sitting on the panel at 2:15. My panel is called Recover, Realign, and Redefining After a Major Life Change or Challenge. So that's the panel that I will be on. I start at 2:15, and if you go to the Eventbrite link, once I load this up after our video, if you go to that link and you put in Super TD for Super Tori Dixon, that would be me, you will get a $10 discount off of your ticket. Okay, so please come and see me. I would love to see some familiar faces on Saturday. It's going to be such a wonderful event. So that is the Super Self-Care Summit down in Dallas this weekend on Saturday, starting at 11 a.m. all the way to 5 p.m. There's going to be vendors there that's going to be able to provide you information and some things about self-care, self-wellness. My good friend, Dr. Jessica Shepard, is going to be on a panel as well that day. So come on out. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Shout out to Dia Smith for putting on such an amazing event. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump right into this self-care thing. We have been hearing so much about self-care lately, and I am so thankful that we are stopping and we are taking a moment to care for ourselves. Oftentimes we are looking outward, and our human nature sometimes says that let me help other people before I help myself. I don't want to feel selfish. I don't want to feel like I am, putting all my resources back into myself and I'm not giving to other people. But I am going to tell you today how important it is to take care of yourself, and that we need to go beyond the surface of what we've come to know self-care to be. So we talk about manicures and pedicures and facials and massages, and those things are good. But today we're going to talk about self-care from the inside out. I want you to start doing some self-evaluation and to do some insight. Sometimes insight is the most difficult sight to have, right? To look inside of yourself and start to look at the things that is causing us harm in any one way or the other. And we're going to start addressing some of those things. So as I was sitting down thinking and wondering what I wanted to say to you guys, I used the word self, SELF, and I use that, and I'm going to use that to give you a couple tips. The first one, that S is going to stand for sympathize. I want you to start sympathizing with yourself, to give yourself the sympathy that we tend to so easily give to other people. As I'm sitting in training on today, one of the things that the instructor said is that we have these rules for ourselves that we don't have for other people. And when we begin to implement these rules on ourselves that we do not implement onto other people, it causes us to build, and it takes us to this place of having unrealistic expectations for ourselves. So we don't sympathize with ourselves, right? I'm supposed to be able to do this. I should know that. I should have known better. I should have done this, or I should have done that. And we have these very unreasonable expectations that we place on ourselves, oftentimes requiring us to know things and to be able to implement things without having proper information. So how would I have known about this situation if I did not have any information to base my decision on? I based my decision on the best information that I had at the time. And if we look at those decisions, oftentimes we're taking look backs in our past. We kind of have that look back effect. So we'll look back at a decision that we've made and we'll say things like, man, I should have done that differently. Not knowing that as you're looking back on the situation, you're looking back on it with more information that you had in the moment when you needed to make that decision, right? So you have to sympathize with yourself, give yourself some sympathy. When you implement that self-sympathizing, what that does is it allows you to better take care of your mental and emotional health. When you let go of some of the negative beliefs that you have adopted about yourself, that you have adopted about the way that you see yourself, and when you implement sympathy, thereby empathy, implementing grace for yourself, then it helps you take off some of those emotional burdens and weights that we've been carrying for forever. I don't forgive myself. I don't see myself worthy of forgiving. I should be carrying this burden for one reason or the other. Maybe I deserve to feel the way that I feel. I have to punish myself for feeling the way that I feel. And oftentimes it's those things that lead to our imbalance, both emotional imbalance and mental imbalance. So the first part of self-care is to implement sympathy for yourself. You need to sympathize with yourself. The next one is the E, which for the E, I put evaluate. I think one of the things that we miss out on is self-evaluation and self-awareness. And when you miss out on self-evaluation, being able to look at yourself for who you are and where you are, not necessarily based on what other people see of you, right? Because oftentimes that can appear to be criticism, but what do you see of yourself? Now, if we look at ourselves and the only thing that we have to measure ourselves against is the negative beliefs and emotions, then that's self-judgment, right? We're putting ourselves down, we're being judgmental. Again, we are lacking sympathy and empathy for ourselves, which then leads to these emotional weights that we carry, these emotional barriers to healthy living and healthy feeling, but particularly mentally and emotionally. So we have to be aware, evaluation, self-insight, taking a moment to look inside and see what you see. It's only self-evaluation that really will allow you to be able to identify some of those negative thoughts. Oftentimes we have a very easy time looking outward and we're able to pick up on what other people, the defaults on others, the dysfunction in others, but we cannot do it in ourselves. And I am telling you that if you want to take care of yourself, you have to become very aware of how you are presenting to the world. You must do self-evaluation. If your insight is going to help you with your foresight. So if you're saying, I want to make better decisions, I want to do things differently in my life, you can't do that if you don't have any insight. If you can't look on the inside and be able to see what's going on with yourself, to self-evaluate, you're going to have a very, very hard time with foresight, that's seeing ahead, right? So the L is limits. If you want to take care of yourself, if you are intentional on self-care, you must set limits. Oftentimes limits and boundaries, right? When we hear the word limits and boundaries, we often think of those in terms of how do we implement them onto other people. I'm setting my boundaries. You're not going to talk to me that way. I'm setting my boundaries with work. I'm not going to work all day. I'm doing my 9 to 5 and then I'm going home. I'm setting my boundaries. I'm not going to allow this person's opinion to infiltrate my relationship. I'm setting my limits. I'm not going to allow my volunteerism to overtake my personal life. So when we think about setting boundaries and setting limits, that's oftentimes in terms of how we implement them for other people. Now, if you're going to take care of yourself, you have to set your own personal boundaries and limits, right? What does that mean? You need to know when enough is enough. And when you find out when enough is enough for you, you need to honor your limits and your boundaries. Know when you can and know when you can't. Let your no be your no and your yes be your yes, right? Don't allow yourself to infringe upon the boundaries that you've set for yourself. So if you say, you know what, I know I can't have this conversation with this person, and the person is, trying to have the conversation, set the limit with yourself and say, you know what, I've created a boundary for myself. I know what my limit is. For most of us, I will tell you that we do not know what our own personal limits are, and we push ourselves to the brink. We have to be at the breaking point before we leave this relationship. We have to be at the breaking point, almost to the point of death, before we leave that job, right? We have to be on the brink of shutting down and can't move forward and can't eat and having anxiety and being nervous before we know enough is enough. We have created these very unreasonable, high tolerance level for emotional pain. We do not honor and set our own limits for ourselves, and we take ourselves to the brink and beyond, and it for many reasons. One, and I'll go back to the beginning, that S, we do not have enough sympathy for ourselves. We do not sympathize enough with ourselves to set a healthy limit and a healthy boundary for what we can do, for what we are willing to participate in. And so therefore we continue in dysfunction, in our own personal dysfunction that we bring upon ourselves, because we will not honor the limits and the boundaries that we have placed on ourselves. So that's a very, very important thing. This last one I'm going to talk about, F, is feelings. Many times we are not given the space to acknowledge and validate feelings. When you honor and validate your feelings, what it says to you and what it says to those who are experiencing you is that I understand the limits of my humanity. I understand that my humanity is not limitless and boundaryless. I understand that my feelings are a necessary part of who I am. And I do not have to have reason for feeling the way that I feel. I'm going to say that again. You do not have to have reason for feeling the way that you feel. If you have a feeling, it is okay to validate that feeling without explanation. You don't have to have a reason for feeling the way that you feel. You can just feel how you feel, and that's it, right? People will push, they will ask questions. Maybe you will even push yourself and say, well, why do I feel the way that I do? You don't necessarily have to have a reason in order for your feelings to be valid. You don't need evidence to validate feelings. They just are what they are. Now, as we move forward in those feelings and how those feelings are then, influencing behaviors, then we need to have reason, right? We need to know why our feelings are influencing our behaviors. Hello, Tisha. Hello, Melissa. Hello, Dee. And hello, Tara. Thank you for joining me. I think I have a few minutes in front of the door. Okay. So there's no obligation to give reason for feelings. You have to be comfortable with expressing feelings, even though there may be people around you who are not comfortable with experiencing those feelings. You have to be able to stand in your need to fully express how you feel without feeling a responsibility to feel otherwise or to explain those feelings. You have to understand that the connection between your thoughts and your feelings are going to be important because they influence how you think. They influence your mental wellness and your mental balance. So if you want to take care of yourself, if we're talking about a full gamut of self-care, you have to be in touch with your feelings, and you have to find yourself being okay with expressing those feelings when necessary. Please understand that there are going to be some moments or situations where you must disassociate from those feelings, where expressing feelings may not be the most healthy thing for you to do. And by disassociating your feelings with the situation, it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person or a negative person. And sometimes that disassociation is necessary to protect yourself. And if you've been using disassociation of feelings and emotions from situation as a mode of self-protection, then you have to honor that. And it's okay to honor that in any setting in which you need to honor it. But you also have to be able to reattach those emotions so that you can properly process what it is that you're feeling, right? So if we're talking about true self-care, we talked about 4 elements of true self-care. Hey, Franz, thank you for joining me. And ladies, if you have any questions, you may go ahead and type it in that box. I probably have about 3 or 4 more minutes before I have to complete and go back to training. So if you're going to talk about true self-care, there's 4 things I want you to remember. 1, S, you must sympathize with yourself. You must give yourself sympathy and empathy, right? E, you must do self-evaluation. You have to evaluate self. If you're not evaluating self, if you're having a difficult time with insight and self-assessment, you are not fully taking care of yourself. L, you must set limits. There has to be limits. You have to create boundaries for yourself. You have to know when to say when, right? And then F is feelings. You have to be in touch with your feelings. You have to find yourself comfortable with being able to express those feelings. And you have to remember that you do not need reason for feeling how you feel, that your feelings are your feelings and you are entitled to feel them. That is my time, ladies. I thank you all so much for joining me on this Therapy Thursday. I know this one is probably a little bit quicker than the others, but I am in training today, and I did not want to miss my Therapy Thursday crowd just because I was in training. So I'm sitting by the electrical room. Y'all see it behind me. And I'm determined to make sure that Therapy Thursdays happen no matter what's going on with me on this side. So I thank you guys for joining me. Please, 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 please do me a favor. Share this video on your page because somebody is wanting to know a little bit more about what self-care actually looks like. They need to know that self-care happens from the inside out, that what happens on the inside will show up on the outside. S, Franz, S is sympathy. Give yourself sympathy, showing yourself sympathy and empathy, being kind to yourself. Letting go of negative beliefs about yourself that keeps you from sympathizing with your own pain and your own emotion. E is evaluating how you feel, self-evaluation, insight, and self-assessment. L is knowing your limits, setting limits and setting boundaries, not just for those who are outside of you, but for setting boundaries for yourself. And F is for feelings, honoring your feelings, knowing that it's okay to feel how you feel, knowing that you do not have to have explanation for feeling how you feel, and being confident to being able to express those feelings without feeling a necessity for giving reason. Thank you so much for sharing this on your page. Listen, share it on your page. Somebody needs to know about self-care. They need to know that self-care starts from the inside and it shows up on the outside. We want you to take care of your physical body. We want you to get those massages and those pedicures, but we also want you and some insight work. We want you to start looking on the inside so that that brightness can show up for you on the outside. I thank you guys so much for showing up. And again, if you're in the DFW area on Saturday, I will be speaking on the panel for the Super Power Summit. I'm trying to reconnect. I don't know if I lost you or not. But thank you all for joining me. Have a great and wonderful day.